There it goes.
Picked right up. Yep.
Thank you, and welcome to the Barefoot Bay Recreation District regular meeting of the Board of Trustees for January 14, 2022. Please, if you have your cell phones on, turn them down, silence them, do whatever you want to do. Let's take a moment of silence, our thought for the day, and it has to be about all the healthcare workers and the people who are trying to solve the COVID situation. We all know how terrible it is right now, and I have family members who work in this field and kind of pray for them every day. So let's think of those people as they try to help us to stay safe. Thank you. Mr. Nugent, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Bruno is, Mr. Bruno is not here. With Mr. Amos, would you please do the roll call?
Okay. Mr. Nugent?
Here.
Mr. Marcy? Here. Mr. Amos? Here. Chairman Rano?
Here.
And we have John Coffey with us, Stephanie Brown, John Carey, attorney, Cliff Reppinger's in the audience, our outgoing attorney. We have Harold Winker, who's in the audience, our trustee-elect. And I believe we have Circuit Judge Kurt Jacobus, I believe. Okay. If I missed anybody, I'm sorry.
Okay, so we have a quorum. Thank you, sir. That's fine. Any additions or deletions to the agenda as presented? Hearing none, can I have a motion, please, to approve the agenda? Mr. Morrissey, is there a second? Mr. Amos? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, sir. Where are we? Presentation proclamation. I do not believe we have any, right? None. The oath of office. Mr. Reppinger, do you want to come up? Oh, I'm sorry. Are we approval of the No. I think we're on. Is it? I think we're on oath of office, aren't we? Okay, he says we had these out of order. Okay, so let's jump down because it is the current board. Let's jump down then to number 11, approval of minutes. You can see that we have minutes dated December 3rd, the special meeting minutes dated November 23rd, December 1st, and December 17th. Are there any changes or deletions or additions to those minutes? Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve all the minutes as presented, please?
Make a motion.
Mr. Nugent, seconded by Mr. Morrissey. Any other discussion, comments, questions? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen. Do we want to do the top two also with this board? We'll do, okay, so we're going out of order. All right, we'll go down to the treasurer's report. Mr. Nugent.
As of January 14th, cash balance in the general fund, petty cash is $2,500. Operating cash in the bank is $384,213.15. MB&T money market account, $3,151,170.14. SBA reserve account is $700,053.16. Total interest-bearing accounts, $3,851,223.30. The total cash balances in the general fund are $4,237,936.45. Daily deposits, $283,413.51. Interest received on the money market, $315.92. Interest received in the SBA, $135.90. Other interest, $379.03. Golf revenues, $43,656.55. Assessments received, $1,818,991.44, for total deposits of $2,146,892.35. Total expenditures, $5,000 and above, $487,625.33. Expenditures under $5,000, $382,325.35, for total expenditures of $869,950.68. That's our treasurer's report.
Thank you, sir. Do we have a motion to accept the treasurer's report as presented and pay bills as presented?
Make a motion.
Mr. Amos, is there a second? Mr. Morrissey. Questions, comments? No other comments? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Just so you all know, my agenda page is not in the order we're going, so it's not my mistake. So now we're going to jump back up, I believe, to oath of office, correct? Mr. Reppinger, please, would you come up and handle this?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. And for those of you who thought you were rid of me, not so fast. This morning I have the pleasure of introducing the judge who will be doing the swearing in of Trustee Brinker and Chairman Mino. This is Circuit Court Judge Kurt Jacobus, Circuit Judge Kurt Jacobus. I thought it was interesting to point out at the beginning that this might be the first time in the state of Florida that a husband and wife judge have performed the swearing-in ceremony for the same public body. You may remember that the Honorable County Court Judge Katie Jacobus performed this ceremony for us here in Barefoot Bay in 2020. But about Judge Kurt Jacobus, he is a lifelong Brevard County resident who went to Melbourne High, as did much of his family. Prior to becoming a lawyer, he served as a Brevard County Sheriff's Deputy and a member of the SWAT team. So anyone who's looking to act up today better take specific note of that, particularly Mr. Brinker, you. We're watching you today. Judge Jacobus is a graduate of Nova Southeastern University Shepherd Broad College of Law. After law school, Judge Jacobus began his career with a local firm in Melbourne, Krasny and Detmer, doing transactional work and litigation. Judge Jacobus then started his own practice before joining the wonderful lawyers at Gray Robinson, where we practiced together for many years before Kurt decided to go back to his own practice with his wife prior to becoming a judge is. Judge Jacobus was elected in 2020 without opposition and took the bench in January of 2021. His motto is to be fair, to be firm but fair, and to honor the hard-working ideals that his parents instilled in him. He certainly has lived up to that standard in his first year on the bench, and it's worth noting that his father, who was a former circuit judge and 5th DCA judge, Bruce Jacobus, now senior judge, is my all-time favorite judge in Brevard County. That is true. So he has big shoes to fill as he continues his work on the bench.
Where did you get this stuff? This is all made up.
In his spare time, Judge Jacobus is an avid outdoorsman, and he's a devoted dad to his 2 children and a loving husband to his wife, Judge Katie Jacobus. He is the second of my former law partners to become a judge and perform this ceremony. So I don't know what that really says about me, but I'm certainly had the good fortune to work with some very good lawyers and good people. And finally, other than my mother and my wife, he's the only person on the planet who I willingly allowed to call me Cliffy. And so without further ado, I present Judge Kurt Jacobus to do our swearing in today.
very much, y'all.
Mr. Breaker, please come up. How are you doing?
How are you doing, sir?
That's enough.
Yeah, that's enough. I do
That's
remember
enough.
that, yes. How are you doing, sir?
Are we back up here? Camera's on it? Okay. I guess so. All right.
All right.
And you were gonna do them one at a time?
Yep.
So we could
But I
just
need
do that one at a time?
I don't have a,
Oh, Stephanie, do you have the sheet?
I don't memorize this stuff.
I'll go first, Michael Moore.
All right. Smile. Do you solemnly swear and affirm that you will support, protect, and defend the Constitution and government of the United States and the state of Florida? What? Oh, you want to say it? But not just say,
Yes.
I do?
Yes.
All right. Repeat after me.
Okay.
I duly swear
I duly swear
or affirm
or affirm
that I will support, protect, and defend the Constitution
that I will support, protect, and defend the Constitution
and government of the United States
and government of the United States
and of the state of Florida,
and of the state of Florida,
that I am duly qualified to hold
that I am duly qualified to hold
office under the Constitution of the state,
office under the Constitution of the state,
and that I will well and faithfully perform the duties of
and I will well and faithfully perform the duties
of
of
Barefoot Bay
Barefoot Bay.
Recreational District Trustee,
Barefoot Bay Recreation District Trustees,
on which I am now
on which I am now
about to enter,
about to enter,
so help me God.
so help me God.
You are now
Thank you, sir. Thank
sworn
you.
in. Thank you, sir. Okay.
Thank you.
There we go.
He's gonna stand on the side, right?
Yes, sir. How are you doing, sir?
So,
Okay. Here you go. Raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I duly solemnly swear or affirm
I do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support,
that I will support,
protect,
protect,
and defend
and defend
the Constitution
the Constitution
and government of the United States
and government of the United States
and of the state of Florida,
the state of Florida,
that I am duly
that I am duly
qualified to hold
qualified to hold
office under
office under
the Constitution
the Constitution
of the state,
of the state,
and that I will
and that I will
well and faithfully
well and faithfully
perform the duties of
perform the duties of
Barefoot Bay
Barefoot Bay
Recreation District Trustee,
Recreation Trustee,
on which I am now
I am now
about to enter,
about to enter,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And
He can leave.
do I need to sign anything or do anything? Okay. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Thank you all very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take just a short recess for 2 minutes, in case you want to take any pictures or something like that. Just a 2 or 3 minute short recess. Earl, in case you want to get some pictures or something, come on up, we'll take just a short recess.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
It's all right. We got plenty of them.
Whatever you got.
Yeah, you can shoot behind the. I mean, more in, like, in around the balloons, so that way.
Thank you for your service, Judge.
Thank you all.
Thank you for what about you're about to do.
Yes, sir.
That would have been the problem.
All right. We got over here now.
What's that?
Do you want a picture too?
With all three of us, or just two? All right.
Hopefully she'll get to where it was. This will be her first.
Oh, I 100%. There you go. All right. If you did, just kept talking. It's all good. That's all I was trying to do because I'm not sure where to go after all this.
Yeah.
You know, next year.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
No, I had shit. Back in.
Yeah.
What's that?
Tell
You're good.
Just coming back for a year before
Here.
Yeah.
I'm all right in front of you. I'm sorry, Jim, I didn't see you.
Where is Guy? Is he on? Are we on?
You're good. Very good. Yeah, meeting adjourned.
We're getting in a pole position here.
Yeah, that's,
I don't know how I get some. I have no idea how I get these things on. I'm not used to it.
switch it up.
No, I got things on here.
Yeah, maybe we need to get the keyboard.
I got.
They didn't get a keyboard snapped right in on it. Yeah, they didn't get a keyboard snapped right on.
Oh. You enjoy the company.
We on?
Yes.
Okay, if we could call the meeting back to order. Thank you very much. And Mr. Brinker, welcome to the board. We wish you good luck. Also, I forgot to mention, Mr. Carey, welcome to your first full meeting, I think it was of our board, right? Regular meeting, so welcome. All right, we jump back up on the agenda to number 8, reorganization of the board. Reorganization of the Board of Trustees. It's a simple process. You simply nominate someone for the position. If there's more than 2 nominations, we then will do a secret vote. So we will start out, first of all, nomination for chairman of the board. Is there a nomination for chairman of the board?
I'll nominate Mike Minor.
Mr. Minor has been nominated for chairman. Are there any other nominations for chairman? Hearing no nominations by acclamation, then I would accept the chairmanship of the board. We will go down then to the 2 other positions that are active. We would go to treasurer. Is there a nomination for treasurer of the board? And I'm sorry, go ahead.
Make a motion.
For Mr. Nugent?
Nugent, yeah.
Yes, okay. Is there any other nominations for treasurer? Again, hearing none by acclamation, Mr. Nugent will be our treasurer. Continue. We then go to secretary of the board. Mr. Brinker has assumed the position of the treasurer who is leaving the board, secretary, and so I would nominate Mr. Brinker for secretary. Are there any other nominations for secretary? Hearing none, Mr. Brinker by acclamation is secretary of the board. We go to first vice chair. Again, Mr. Amos has been first vice chair. I would nominate Mr. Amos for first vice chair. Any other nominations for first vice chair? Hearing none, by acclamation, Mr. Amos is first vice chair, and Mr. Morrissey ends up as our second vice chair. We don't have to make a motion to accept all these, do we? No. Okay. So Chairman, Mr. Mino, Secretary, Mr. Brinker, Treasurer, Mr. Nugent, first Vice Chair, Mr. Amos, and second Vice Chair, Mr. Morrissey. Appointment of the Nrp Subcommittee. Right now on the subcommittee, in the past year, I sat on it, and who else? Mr. Bruno? Do we remember? We need how many members? 3. So we need 3 members of the Board of Trustees to sit on the NRP committee. Does anyone remember, Mr. Brinker would volunteer, does anyone remember who was on it? Mr. Morrissey, were you on it or not?
I was a trustee.
Trustee on the NRP committee, where we buy the homes.
No, I'm sorry, on the off.
On the, no, okay, we're looking at NRP.
I thought it was
Mr. Amos was on it? We had 3 though on there, do you remember?
No,
I was one, Mr. Bruno was one.
I came in.
Okay, Mr. Nugent, no, it was an honor. Mr. Brinker, want to be on the NRP committee? If there are no other nominations, it would be, I would nominate myself, Mr. Brinker, and we need a third. Mr. Amos? Any other nominations for that committee? Is there a motion to approve Mr. Mino, Mr. Amos, and Mr. Brinker to the NRP committee? Mr. Nugent makes a motion. Is there a second? Mr. Morrissey seconds. Any questions, comments? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen. We need an appointment of an ARC liaison. Was Mr. Morrissey, I believe, in the past, right? Last year? I'm sorry, Mr. Brinker?
I have that also.
Mr. Brinker would ask to be on a committee. Mr. Morrissey, do you still wish to be on a committee?
No.
Any other nominations on that committee? All those make a motion. I need a motion approving Mr. Brinker to the ARC as the ARC liaison.
I'll make a motion to appoint Mr. Brinker.
Opposed by Mr. Amos, seconded by Mr. Nugent. Any questions, comments? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Audience participation. Again, I have only 2 slips. You're more than welcome to get up. You don't have to fill the slip in. Please state your name and give your address for the record. The first one up is Louise Cross.
Thank you, Louise Kraus, 808 Sapodilla Drive, Barefoot Bay. I'd like to report that the DOR Ad Hoc Committee had their first meeting on this past Thursday at 9 a.m. It was a good selection of individuals. You all did a fine job. Good participation among the members and good preparation among the members. We are looking at 6 meetings, approximately 2 per month. We should be finished with proposed ballot questions by April, giving you plenty of time for review and also review by the attorney. There was also very good audience participation, and it indicates the community's interest. Thanks to Mr. Armington and staff, announcements will be put into the peak of the week to advise of the discussion items for the upcoming meetings so that people can prepare and plan, and if that's an area of interest, they can provide input at the meetings. Thank you for the confidence you have placed in the committee and for the opportunity to serve the community in reviewing the deed of restrictions.
Thank you, Louise. I know that's a big task, and we appreciate the time and effort that the committee is going to give to this. It is a big task. Next item up is Jeannie.
Yeah.
All right. Yes, no?
Yeah.
Jeannie Osborne?
Yeah. Sorry, it takes me a little bit to get up there. I'm not going to be the most popular person.
However, I would ask that we look at the number 14A, COVID precaution. And I really wish that we would make some acknowledgement of the fact that we are not following too many of the precautions here today. We're sitting close together in the audience. Almost no one has a mask on. And I really wish we would not let down our defenses at this point. I think we're getting close to getting to the end, and I don't want to see any more of my friends ill. Please take precaution.
Thank you, Jeannie. You don't have to feel bad about that. We don't usually comment on it, but again, you are absolutely right. This is a terrible time we're going through. As I mentioned, not to get off subject, but my son works for a major hospital, and right now they have double the number of patients for COVID than they've ever had during the pandemic in the hospital. And it is not a good thing, and I do appreciate your comments. Okay, we have one letter also for unfinished business. Mr. Coffey will read it. Or I mean for the audience participation.
To the Board of Trustees from Thomas Nelson, 1008 Waterway Drive, President Chairman of the ARC Committee. Subject, ARC-based vacancies. I'm writing this letter as I have a previous commitment and am unable to be present at the meeting to fill the vacancies on the ARC. Historically, when vacancies on the ARC occurred on the ARC, the BOT promotes alternates to the vacant voting position and new candidates fill the alternate position. This strategy is particularly important to maintain the continuity and knowledge base of the voting members. Being an alternate provides the individual time to learn the rules governing permits and develop an understanding of the voting process. This evolution is especially important to ensure consistency in the voting and approval process of permits that come before the ARC. I would therefore request that Mr. Klosky, who is presently an alternate, fill one of the vacant voting member positions. Mr. Carey, who is also an alternate, cannot be moved to a voting position because he is a CBO appointee, and the DOR states that only 3 members of the ARC can be CBO appointees, and we presently have 3 voting positions. I would ask the board in its wisdom to appoint Mr. Carey as a BOT appointee and bypass the CBO issue. I believe these steps would ensure continuity of the proper skills, knowledge base on the ARC. Note, I do have an email from Elizabeth Taylor of CBO stating that at their board meeting on December 17th, 2021, the CBO appointed Mr. Gresco to a 3-year term and Mr. Gruneau to an alternate position on the ARC. This would indicate that one open position exists. I thank the board for its careful consideration in filling the vacancies on the ARC.
Thanks, sir. Any other, and by the way, we don't have it here, we're not going through it now, but Mr. Coffey did respond to Mr. Nelson and explain how we work this and what goes on. Any other audience participation? Again, you do not have to have filled out a slip, you can come up. Hearing none, audience participation is closed. Unfinished business, Mr. Coffey.
This is an item.
I'm sorry, COVID precautions, good.
This is an item the board has reviewed since last August at every meeting. For those folks coming back, winter residents, BBRD lifted all of the last BBRD specific COVID restrictions on July 1, 2021. For the last few months, we've had a 1 rider per cart rule on the golf course. Last week, the board voted to go back to 2 riders per cart for tomorrow's Veterans Tournament and reevaluate the issue at this meeting. Staff, from my understanding, talking with Mr. Cruz, the majority of the week, there's not been that much use of 1 rider per cart. It's largely Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. Therefore, we recommend ceasing the 1 rider per cart rule.
Staff has a recommendation to continue with the 1 rider per cart rule. Is there a motion to accept that recommendation? read your recommend, your,
Staff's recommendation is to cease the one rider per car rule. Yeah, end it.
end, oh, I'm sorry, end it, I'm sorry, okay. So and end it officially tomorrow, I mean immediately?
Correct.
Okay, and so the recommendation is to cease the one rider per cart rule effective as soon as they can do that. Is there a motion to accept that recommendation?
I'll move this.
Mr. Amos moves that we end the one rider per cart rule. Is there a second to that motion? Second by Mr. Brinker. Comments, questions? Mr. Amos, and the last time, you know, I talked about this after, again, you had input that at the last meeting about going to the one rider rule for the veterans thing. Again, comments, questions?
The comments I had were pertaining to that for tomorrow. As long as we had enough carts and that they were worried about the carts, and I believe they investigated it and they don't have a problem with one rider per cart. Really, but, no, wait a minute, I said that wrong. They needed to do 2 riders per cart to make sure they had enough carts because they have a shotgun in the morning and the afternoon. That's a lot of people, they need a lot of carts. On the other side, ongoing, every other golf course around for the last few months has had a 2 rider per cart rule. They no longer allow 1 person per cart. It's been that way. Most of the people, well actually all the people that play here and go to all of their courses, which is a lot of people, they don't seem to have a problem with it. They carpool, they go down, they ride 2. Here, they seem to want to ride 1 to a cart. And I can see their reasoning is because they pay the trail fee for their private cart. That's the only difference that I can see. I really haven't seen much going on where anybody around here has been getting sick from somebody riding in their cart. I don't know I don't know actually what to say about it. I suggest that everybody rides 2 to a cart. I don't have a problem with it. Most people around here have had their 3 shots. You can certainly wear a mask if you want, and if you rent a cart from Barefoot Bay, they have curtains that they will put up, plastic curtains they'll put up to keep you separated from the rider. I mean, if that's what you want to do. So I can't see a real reason to keep riding single carts here, especially on the other side. We have a small course, you have twice as many carts out there, and it's just going to tear up the golf course, which we're trying to get improved because it wasn't in great shape anyway. Thank you.
Just a couple comments, and I understand what you're saying. One thing about the other courses that everyone has to remember, however, there are no private carts at those courses. They are all course carts. Here, probably half the carts that are used are private carts, whereas the other courses, Sebastian, Sandridge, everywhere, they're all their own carts. No one has a private cart. That's number one. Number two, if we're going to have curtains up, we have to authorize staff to do that, or do we, John, or just assume they're going to do it?
We put a few up.
You did put a few up?
Started
Okay.
one rider per cart. They're not that difficult to put up.
Okay. And the only third comment I have, and I have a problem going to 2 rider per cart. The third comment I have though is if I was going to Sebastian to play and I had to go in a cart, they're going to put us 2 in a cart. I don't have much to say about that. But in my own private cart, I absolutely will refuse to ride with anyone who is not vaccinated. I'm not going to take the chance. I don't believe in it, and then it's my cart, so I wouldn't do that. So if we go to 2 rider cart, I'm not sure how we'd handle that issue, but I just need to bring that out. There are people who feel like that if people are not going to take the time to get vaccinated and to try to help solve this thing, they don't want them riding in their car to take a chance. So take that into consideration as we look at this. I'm not saying we do anything about it, but I know I will not allow anyone to ride with me who's not vaccinated. Other comments? Mr. Nugent, Mr. Brinker, anyone? Mr. Morrissey?
Just saying that it.
Put your mic on, Mike. Put your mic on, Mike.
Yeah, I kind of, I'm not a golfer, number one, okay. Number two, if there's some way of verifying the fact that they're vaccinated.
And I'm not looking to have the course ask them or anything else. I'm simply saying, if I was going to ride in something and they send someone out and said, by the way, I'm riding with you, I would ask the person, are you vaccinated? If they said no, I'd go in and say, listen, that person's not riding with me. you know.
Okay.
You know, you understand what I'm saying? So I'm not trying to make a rule here in any way, you know.
All right.
Anyone else? Mr. Brinker, Mr. Nugent? Anything? And I'm not opposed to two riders a cart, by the way. I'm not. I understand this is what we should be doing.
But yet on the other hand, I'm not a golfer, but if we still have surplus of carts with one rider per cart, why don't we just continue that?
And again, their rationale is, and it's a true one, I'm just adding in, I'm not arguing the point either way, is that the number of carts we use, of course, does tear up the course more than just two carts. And most courses, because of that, only allow two carts per foursome, simply because it keeps the traffic down on the course. But that's the reasoning. Mr. Brinker?
Yes. Yes, I think it ought to be optional. You don't prefer to go alone, and I think you should have two in each golf cart. Thereupon, somebody like yourself, if you prefer to ride alone, you prefer to ride alone. I don't see why we can't make it optional.
Well, again, and if we do that, if you do it that way, then everyone's just gonna say, well, I wanna ride alone, and that we're not solving the problem, you know. Again, I am not opposed to it. I just, as Jeannie said, I think we have to continue to be careful a little bit. I agree with Bruce. I don't think people out there, I only knew 2 or 3 people that play with us who are not vaccinated, so probably the majority of people are vaccinated, trying to keep safe. Any other comments, questions? And we were gonna call this, but we have a motion on the floor.
I just don't know what the staff could do. I mean, we don't have a suggestion on that. If we vote for 2 to a cart, and one day they put somebody with you, and you asked him, and he said no, he's not vaccinated, and then you.
They'd probably tell me I can't play then.
Well,
That's fine, I'll go home.
That's my question.
I'll go home.
Is we can leave it up to the staff to make their own decision whether to let you go or not, but that's, I don't know.
Yeah. John, any ideas on this? I mean, I know, I'm not trying to make this as tricky as, any more complicated than it is.
The 2 parts I would just throw out is that the trail fees are often misunderstood. If you don't pay trail fees, you're going to pay to ride in a cart every time. That costs a lot more than the trail fee. The trail fee is actually a discount that we give you to allow us to use your cart as a quasi district fleet vehicle. And so I understand that, use Chairman Mino as an example, not specifically, he owns the cart, he drives the cart, he views it as his. But when it's on our golf course as a trail fee, it's an extension of our fleet. That's the rationale behind how we put someone in somebody else's cart. I think the broader issue is the longer you take this one rider per cart rule on, you might as well make it permanent. It'll be a year-round effect because, you know, as much as we'd like COVID to go away, the World Health Organization, the White House, everybody's saying we got to learn to live with it, that it's not going away. So I would just encourage you to, we're either going to stick with one rider per cart and stop talking about this every meeting, or go back to what we used to do. But at some point this becomes, when we get to the spring, if we're still doing one rider per cart rule, the rationale will be then there's less people playing, there's no harm one rider per cart. So just to speed up our meetings, I think we ought to make a decision and move on.
Thank you, and it's very good rationale that he presented about the one rider per cart and the trail fees. I agree with you completely. It is basically your own cart, but it's now a course cart while you're using it. Okay, I don't have a problem with this. I have two riders per cart. We had the one rider for a long time, and we're looking now at 2 riders per cart. The motion is to go back to 2 riders per cart. We'll do this on a voice vote because there's been discussion. So all those in favor of going back to, any other discussion, by the way, before I go?
I just, it bothers me because we're gonna have to change, I think, anyway, the rules for wearing masks and everything like that. Now we're opening up to non-vaccinated people or people that are, you know, riding to in a car. What are we gonna do with the mask mandate, if we're gonna have one? Because it seems like, you know, like young lady, I forgot her name, mentioned it, today there's a lot of people don't have masks on, you know. And the present day now, they should really have them on, it's my opinion anyway. But because it's, this is the same issue, like if you're gonna go, let's have the whole discussion with everything before we make this decision. Because it seems like it's okay for the golfers to get sick. I'm only kidding, I'm not saying they're gonna get sick. Or where two people so close, where we have a meeting here and we're sitting very close, as we will be in a car. So we need to have the whole thing come to an understanding of what we're gonna do here about the Corvus mass situation and the golf course.
Okay, and again, I apologize, I did not mean to confuse it more than it should be. Again, the motion is to go back to 2 riders per cart. There's no stipulations about vaccinations and all of that stuff. That was just my own opinion, my own feelings. I do not have a problem with this. So the motion is to go back to 2 riders per cart. That's what we're voting on, only that. That was with the motion. So we'll do voiceful, if that's all right. We'll start, Mr. Nugent.
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Brinker.
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey.
No.
Mr. Amos.
Yes.
And Mr. Mino, the chairman, would say yes. 4-1, we go back to 2 riders per cart. Thank you, gentlemen.
Just for clarity, Mr. Chairman, do you want this agenda item to continue?
I don't believe we have any other COVID restrictions in place right now, correct? So unless something happens that has to come up, I think this could be a non-agenda item from here on in, the COVID precautions. Sorry for that, I didn't mean to get that involved in it. New business, ARC appointments, Mr. Coffey.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, trustees, residents gathered here and watching at home. There's the Architectural Review Control Committee has dual appointing authority. Per the amended DOR from, I believe, 2017, the HOA or successor, which is the CVO, appoints 3 voting members and appoints 1 alternate. The DOT appoints 2 voting members and 1 alternate. In the last couple of months, both DOT appointed voting members have resigned, and so there's 2 vacancies. There is 1 current DOT alternate, Mr. Klosky. There's 4 applicants, Mr. Bruno, Mr. Constantino, Mr. Preston, and Ms. Sheff. Historically, the board has moved up the alternate to voting member and then filled any other positions. Therefore, staff recommends Mr. Klosky be appointed to the vacant voting position with the expiration date of 22/2024. A homeowner appointed to the vacant voting position previously held by Mr. Brinkler, an expiration date of October 30th, 2022, and a homeowner to the vacant alternate position currently held by Mr. Klosky with the expiration date of February 22, 2024.
Okay, and clarifications. We have to deal with each one of these individually, do we? I think because they each need a second, correct?
Correct. You could have 3 motions or you could have 1 motion.
Okay, well, okay, before we make the motion, then we would have to add the people in, so we could do it either way. Okay. Okay, so I understand what they're saying. We can do this as 3 individual motions, or this is one of those issues where you need a motion and a second and approval. We can do them all at one time, do the whole thing as one motion. Before we do that and look for a motion, these are one of those complicated issues. You'll notice we have a couple different appointments here, and we have appointments throughout the year to things. We have some very good people who have applied for them. My feeling has always been you're trying to get new blood to come into this organization and to help out at Barefoot Bay, even though we have, good people spending a lot of time and effort on committees right now. I also try to look to get more people on committees, not necessarily the same person on all committees all the time. So with that in mind, the first issue is Mr. Klosky to the vacant voting position previously held by Ms. Lockamundi. And then we need a homeowner to the vacant voting position held by Mr. Breaker. Anyone have suggestions, nominations? Mr. Nugent.
Are we gonna do all three at once?
Do them however you all would like. How would you like to do them? Singly?
No, let's do all three at once.
Okay,
Let's move Mr. Klosky to a voting member.
okay.
Let's move Mr. Constantino to a voting member. And Mr. Bruno to an alternate.
You're making that as a motion?
I am.
Is there a second to that? You're seconding the whole motion? Okay, any comments, questions? Mr. Amos?
What if I don't necessarily want those two particular people?
Yeah, that's why I was thinking we would do them individually, but, because the way, to answer your question, the way it would go, we would have a vote on the motion, and the motion either passes or it doesn't. And if you were looking to nominate someone else, it's a lost cause then. So again, I'm not trying to tell you how to do it. That's why I asked at the beginning, should we do them individually or as one motion?
Would it be cleaner if we did it as each individual?
I believe it would be.
Okay, then I withdraw my motion.
Okay. So now, the first one is Mr. Klosky to the vacant voting position. Is there a motion for that? Mr. Morrissey makes a motion. Is there a second? No second? No second by Mr. Amos. Any comments, questions? Okay, all those in favor of Mr. Klosky going to the vacant voting position previously held by Ms. Lockamundi, say aye. Opposed? Mr. Klosky is in. We next need a homeowner to the vacant voting position previously held by Mr. Brinker. Is there enough? Mr. Nugent?
I would nominate Mr. Ed Constantino for that voting member position.
Is there a second to that nomination? Second by Mr. Brinker. Any other nominations to that position?
I would like to vote Barbara Shrimp.
Ms.
To the
Shrimp,
voting
is it, how do you say
position.
it? Shrimp, okay. Is there a second to that nomination? Do we need a second to the nominations? We do. Is there a second to that nomination? And I would second that as chairman. We then go to what? A ballot?
Did you have a second for the first?
Yeah. There's Nugent and Brinker. Nugent, Brinker, the first one, and Amos and Mino on the second. Actually, these are nominations and not motions. You do go to
Traditionally, we treated them as motions. I would suggest call the first motion, and if it passes, the second motion becomes moot.
Everybody understand that? So what we're gonna do, we're gonna treat them as two different motions. The first motion would be to appoint Mr. Constantino to the voting position held by Mr. Brinker. And that either passes or fails, and then the second motion would be on the other Mrs. Shrimp, Ms. Shrimp, I think it calls. Okay, the first motion is for Mr. Constantino. Any comments, questions on that? All those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye. Mr. Nugent, aye. Mr. Brinker, aye. Mr. Morrissey, aye. Mr. Amos, no? No, okay. All right, the motion passes. So there's really no sense having the other motion then, correct? The other motion is not needed. The next motion we need is a homeowner to the vacant alternate position held by Mr. Klosky. Is there a nomination or a motion to appoint someone to that position? Mr. Amos.
Nominate Barbara for that.
Barbara, how do you say her last name? Is it Shrimp? Is there a second to that nomination? And I would second that. Any other comments, questions on that? All those in favor of the Barbara Shrimp taking the homeowner position vacated by Mr. Klosky signify by saying aye. Aye. Aye, Mr. Nugent. All those opposed, aye, Mr. Brinker. Those opposed? Motion carries. Did we get it? Steph, did we get it? I don't want to be confused. So the way I have it right now is Mr. Klosky, Mr. Constantino, and Ms. Shrimp. That was a lot of work. Sorry about that. Mr. Klosky, Violations Committee appointment.
We have one vacancy on the Violations Committee, Trustee Brinker's former position. Though we've not had any resumes or letters, we could move up one of the two alternates. The two alternates are Ms. Louise Krause and Ms. Sue Paul. Both have indicated their willingness to be appointed as a voting member. In lieu of waiting for someone to request to be appointed to the board, staff recommends the BOT appoint one of the alternates to the unexpired voting position of Mr. Brinker, term ending September 30th, 2024.
Thank you, sir. And again, before we go on, ask for a motion. This is one of those things I talked about again before because, again, we have Louise Krause on there, who is a very capable person. I don't know Ms. Hall. Has she been on the Violations Committee up to this point? She's been an alternate, correct?
Yes, she was appointed last fall.
Okay, so we have two people that are very familiar with how Barefoot Bay operates and the different things. So what we need is a nomination or a motion to appoint one of those two individuals to the Barefoot Bay Violations Committee. Mr. Amos.
I make a motion to move Louise Krause into the voting position.
Move Louise Krause into the voting position. Is there a second to that motion? Seconded by Mr. Nugent. Any other comments, questions? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. I believe we will advertise for an alternate position. Is that what we do?
We'll continue to advertise.
We're continuing to advertise. Okay. Okay. 15C, a discussion of issuing a request for proposal for maintenance of the golf course, softball field, turf, and lawn bowling field. Mr. Coffey and Mr. Nugent are on the contact person. Mr. Coffey? Or Mr. Nugent going? Mr. Coffey.
Trustee Nugent requested I put this on the agenda. For those who were not at the meeting last week, ABM has appointed a new on-site superintendent, Mr. Rick Jones. He gave a thorough discussion of what he believed were the maintenance issues going forward. Trustee Nugent requested this to stay on the agenda.
Comments, questions? Mr. Nugent.
My rationale for that are a couple of things. First and foremost, I think we need to put ABM on notice. I think Rick Jones is doing a yeoman's job by trying to improve upon the golf course. My concern has been history with ABM, that they'll give him all the support he needs, and then 30 days, 60 days from now, back out. And the RFP process is a long process if we decide to move ABM out and hire a new company. So I think we need to start the process now. We don't have to do anything with it, just start it. And second, as we approach or in the budget season, it's going to give John a couple of numbers to look at if we're going forward and replacing ABM as to what it's going to cost us for a new contract.
Any other comments? Any? I agree with what Jim is saying to a certain extent. We could spend a lot of time dealing with the past of ABM, and what I think came out of our special meeting the other day was we have to now start looking at the future and what can be done now and what there is. I think ABM to a certain degree has been put on notice. I don't think there's any question about that. I think they knew it was coming. I think Matt Hill and some of the other people who run that have been told and know exactly where we stand on things. However, if we start an RFP process right now, I I can see some negative things from that happening, because I don't think we're at a point right now where we're gonna go for an RFP and hire a new company. I absolutely believe, just my opinion, that we have to let this person now see what he can do. He came out, he has very good knowledge about turf and grasses, and he has a lot of ideas, and he answered our questions the other day just spot on. It was immediate. Someone asked me after the meeting, did you guys give him the questions? Absolutely not. He had no knowledge of what we were gonna do, and he jumped right in and he answered every question, and he said, he gave us his plans for what he would do to the course to make the improvements. Number one, I think, in my opinion, I think we have to give him a chance to see what he can do. Number two, you're right, it takes a long time for an RFP process, but if you go for an RFP right now, and you ask people to submit these with their knowledge and knowing that, they're probably not gonna really do anything right now, I'm not sure we're going to get a good qualified RFP from anyone, or that they're gonna wanna go through the process just so we could see what someone else may charge. Number two, if you do that, and if you think to go for an RFP, then there's a lot of issues that come in, because number one, you have to start interviewing these people. We don't just get a piece of paper from them. We have to interview them and say, what would you do differently? What would you do to the greens? How would you change the grasses? They have to give us that knowledge before we're ever going to accept anyone's RFP. And how is that going to be different than what Rick Jones just said the other day? So I'm not against this at all, Mr. Nugent. Believe me, I'm not. We've talked about this for a long time. But to start a process, if we're not really going to do it, is going to take us a lot of time and effort, and take the companies a lot of time and effort. And on top of that, if all of a sudden they came back, just for our knowledge, and if those RFPs came back and they were much more than what we are paying right now for ABM, where do you think that puts ABM over us? Knowing that we're paying them less than we'd have to pay another company. So I only offer all this because unless we're really saying that we're going to go for an RFP and choose a company, I have some problems with it. I understand the point, I understand why we started this, but we started it, we also had the meeting then, this was discussed before we had the meeting, so, okay, Mr. Nugent, go ahead.
Yeah, but if we wait until we've made a decision that we're gonna replace ABM, it's at least 120, 180 days out before ABM could be replaced. And so if we...
Either way, it's 90 days, right, it's 90 days either way, no matter what.
By the time you put the RFP out, that's 30 days. 30 days for the response to the RFP. Additional time to interview people who have put in their bids. If we do it now, and we decide to replace ABM, that's not gonna be until September. So if we look at it now, it gives us at least an opportunity to evaluate what other companies are going to do, the cost of other companies, without us having to do anything.
Okay, and I understand, but the point is, the motion is going to have to be then that we go out for an RFP. If we say that, then that means we are going to go out for an RFP, they're going to come in and do their evaluation, we're going to hold interviews with the companies that we select, and we're going to choose a company, and it may very well be ABM after that. But that means we're going to do it. And so, that's the question. So the question is, are we ready to just say we're gonna do it and not give this guy a chance? That's my issue. Because if we go out for an RFP, we're choosing a company. That's
I
it.
agree with it. I agree with, I think we should get the coordinator, whoever, the manager now.
Course superintendent.
Thank you. A chance before you do anything. You're gonna open up a Pandora's box as far as, the other company, ABM, is gonna say, well, if I don't do this, and I don't do that, they're gonna be a lot of backstopping, I think it's better just leave it alone, let the man do what he promises, okay? And if you don't see anything good about it, then you can, either get with it, ABM, because they're not cooperating or whatever, I don't think it's a good idea to go for that at this point.
And just so people understand what we're talking about, and try not to confuse it more. If we go out for an RFP, we're going to send this out to companies, they're gonna have X amount of time to draw up a proposal for us. They're going to come in, they have to come in and evaluate all the different parts of the course, they have to send people in. They then have to draw up a proposal. We then would sit down and interview all these different companies to see what they would do differently or the same, or what their plans would be. And so this is going to put them to a great deal of trouble. So again, if we put it out, that means we're going to choose one of them. And it could very well be ABM. ABM may submit a proposal also. But that's what we're saying right now is if we do that, then we're not going to give him a chance. Because we are going to choose another company within a few months. And I agree with Jim that it's going to take you 2 or 3 months or whatever to do this, but is it that wrong to say, let's give this guy 60 days or something to see how, again, we're in overseeding right now, so things are green. It's going to get bad in May. And what did they do to get the course back up? Okay, other comments, questions?
Yeah, I think you need to see what this guy's gonna do. He has a great plan, he seems like a go-getter, he works great. We had one like him before, but, you know, that's going back, and I think what happened with that is ABM didn't back him. Mr. Jones here seems that he's confident that ABM is backing him. And like you said, if we put an RFP out now, and these people do all their work, and then they come back and they give us the RFP, and Mr. Jones ends up doing what he said he's going to do and creates us a beautiful golf course, then we're not going to do anything within that 90 days or whatever, okay? And then at that point, it was looking better, but if ABM at that point backs out and it starts going down the hill like it did before, well, we already did our RFP, we didn't choose those guys, what are we going to do then? We have to put out another RFP, and what kind of response do you think you're going to get then when you didn't bother with the first RFP? So, in my opinion, I think you should let this man do what he wants to do. Look at it for the next 60 or 90 days, because it's looking good now, but you do have to wait until the spring and check it there, revisit it then.
Mike?
Yes.
Vernon,
Yes, go ahead.
what bothers me, we've had ABM since 2003. And I was over at the lawn bowling area, and that's horrible. I haven't been to the golf course, I mean to softball yet, but I am going over there. That's my only thing. We've had them, since '03.
Okay, but I didn't get your point. What's your point?
We've had,
Put the mic.
they've had all the opportunity in the world to perform, and I do back this gentleman also, so I'm kind of a little swishy here. His presentation I thought was excellent, but here again, I just thrown around the thought we've had them all this time, and they've had plenty of time to do. We've been through, I don't know how many managers, I think 2 that I can remember. I bet every other year we have somebody else, that's all.
And you're right, we did, but again, you see, we had him for a long time. We didn't have this guy for a long time. This guy's only been here for a month or 2. So he's the turf specialist that used to work with ball fields, etc. Up to the board, what is your pleasure? We need a motion or no motion or something, recommendation? There is no recommendation, actually, just what do we want to do?
It was just a discussion.
Okay, and Jim, I'm not trying to put your idea down though, but if we make a motion, see, to go for an RFP, that means we're gonna select a different company, and that's what I'm just trying to make sure we understand. So it's either that, or we look at this and wait and bring it back. It's your pleasure, it's the board's pleasure.
As I said, I think Rick is doing a tremendous job, but I'm not confident that ABM will provide the necessary support for him to be able to continue.
That's a good point, the support, and if you remember, we asked that with the boss out there in the audience, so again, to your point, I think they got the message, because I point blank asked him, do you have the full support of AVM to do your plan? And he jumped right in and said, absolutely, that they're not gonna tell me different than what the plans I wanna do. So again, any motions need to come out of this, or do we just wait and see? Jim, it's your baby, I'm not trying to put it down.
Let's just wait and see.
Wait and see? Well, we didn't have a motion, so it was a discussion. We don't need to do anything to table or anything, we can always bring it back up as we go. Is there consensus to that? Okay?
Good.
Okay.
But we need to let them know we're watching.
Oh, and I agree, Jim, I think it's an excellent thing that we did, and we made sure they all knew. That's why Matt Hill was at the meeting, that's why they're doing, you know, they were told even when they hired Rick, we need a name today, and they hired the guy that day, they quit fooling around. So I think they get the idea that they have to improve the conditions, they have to support what he's doing, or we in fact will be looking for a new company. Okay? John, we have to do anything else with that? I don't think so. Okay, where are we now? Building A retaining wall repairs, Mr. Coffey.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. The current 5-year financial model CIP contains approximately $138,000 planned expenditures for repairs to the Building A retaining wall project based on assessment completed in 2019. Late last year, we issued an RFP, which we got 0 responses from, and the board authorized staff to solicit bids the old-fashioned way. Staff reached out via email and phones. 12 vendors were personally contacted, with only 2 responding. 1 ghosted us, never showed up. The 1 vendor that did show up submitted a bid for $114,780. Although the bid is lower than the budget, a lot of this work, it deals with putting grout inside the seams of the walls and also digging up and addressing some of the tiebacks. Those tiebacks were last seen 3 years ago, so this is one of those projects that, although certain folks will cringe when I say change order, that there probably will be some change orders for this, so please don't start thinking how to spend the surplus budget yet. Staff does not believe that there's any reasonable chance of getting a second bid anytime soon, and this project is ideally executed outside of the rainy season months when the lake level is higher. What you have seen inside your agenda packet is their proposal, and I listed a few items within their proposal that staff would not accept, and Mr. Carey has developed an addendum contract that supersedes aspects of their proposal. Therefore, staff recommends the DOT award contract to Foundations Professional of Florida in the amount of $114,780 for Building A retaining wall repairs, waiving the second bid requirement, and authorizing Chairman Mino to sign the contract drafted by General Counsel Carey.
Thank you. Before we normally ask for a motion to accept staff's recommendation, can you do, John, and I didn't tell you about this ahead of time, can you do just a short brief to tell us this retaining wall so people understand what it is? What is actually happening there, and what are we going to do? I mean, in simple terms.
Yeah. Some people call it a seawall, retaining wall. There's a difference in definitions I won't get into. But the walls were not poured at one time, so they're seams. Typically, the way you get 2 pieces of concrete to hold water or soil back is you put them close together and you grout the seams. That grout over 50+ years has eroded, so they will be regrouting the seams. The wall has anchors, basically rebar that ties back to keep them from falling out. Some of those rebars that folks who've been around here a while remember potholes used to be around the new CVO pavilion. They'll re-expose those tiebacks, replace the ones that need to be replaced. Ones that are not that eroded, they can basically rehab them and seal them, and fill and recompact any voids in the area of the tiebacks that the lack of grout has caused. This is a project that's probably done once every 30 to 40 years. The wall is not in any imminent danger of collapse, but with anything that is leaking water or leaking sand, the longer you let it leak, the bigger the project becomes. So this is a project that there'll be some work inside the walls where our residents are around the pools back of Building A. There'll be people outside of the walls working. This is one of those deferred maintenance projects that a time has come to do.
Thank you. And for the audience knowledge, in our agenda package of 330 some pages, we have pictures of all of that stuff. So there's a lot of detail, a lot of work that has to be done there. But I want to make sure those listening understand what we're doing. Can we have a motion, please, to accept staff's recommendation to award contract to Foundation Professionals of Florida in the amount of $114,780 for building a retaining wall repairs? Mr. Nugent makes a motion. Is there a second? Mr. Amos seconds. Questions, comments? I asked John to go into detail a little bit because as you all see in your packet, there's a lot of damage there. All the pictures were in there, and so any other comments, questions of this? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, sir. Managed Information Technology Services Contract Renewal. Mr. Coffey.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. The other spectrum of assets is the digital side. Last year, BBRD switched providers from a traditional break-fix approach to what is called managed care, trying to do less work on site, lessening our costs, being proactive, addressing cybersecurity issues. That was for a 1-year contract. This is a 3-year extension. Due to the timing of issues and only one board meeting in December, I executed a 12-month extension that expires at the end of this month. This takes care of basically all our IT needs. It's largely done remotely now, and they help us with compliance factors. Every once in a while they do have to come out, but Ms. Brown and I sleep much better at night. She in Port St. Lucie and I in West Melbourne, for anybody out there trying to think naughty thoughts, that we are less prone to hacks and security breaches. This contract will take us through the next 3 months. There is sufficient budget to maintain this. It does exceed the $15,000 in values, and that's why it comes to the board for approval. Mr. Carey has reviewed it and drafted another addendum, so this is ready for Chairman Mino's execution Monday morning or first time I see him next week at the admin building.
Thank you, sir. Is there a motion to accept staff's recommendation to approve a 3-year contract renewal with Omega Technology Solutions and authorize the chairman to execute the contract? Mr. Morrissey makes a motion. Is there a second? Mr. Nugent seconds. Comments, questions? Mr. Amos.
I have one, I read a lot of this, it's large. I'm just wondering if there's anything built in that they have for protection and any procedures for ransomware.
Not necessarily within the contract. Separately, Ms. Brown probably thankful she has her mask on right now, because that's been something on her to-do list, that she's working with Omega to develop a ransomware attack protocol of how we would handle it. So that is something in the works.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Neighborhood Revitalization Program, is this Mr. Arlington? Or are you? Okay, Rich.
I'll go back if you.
No, he's doing it. He said you're doing it.
I have no problem with it. This Neighborhood Rich Armington, Resident Relations HR Manager. Neighborhood Revitalization Program Purchase Confirmation 416 Barefoot Boulevard. Chairman of the NRP BLT Subcommittee shall be authorized to approve the expenditures of NRP funds in excess of $15,000 and not to exceed $25,000 by staff toward the acquisition of a property identified by the subcommittee in accordance with the NRP rules as established by the BOT. On September 2nd, 2021, NRP Chairman Mino authorized the purchase of 416 Barefoot Boulevard. Staff recommends the BOT confirm the purchase of 416 Barefoot Boulevard via the Neighborhood Revitalization Program.
Thank you, sir. Is there a motion to accept that recommendation? Mr. Nugent, is there a second? Mr. Brinker, comments, questions while Rich is up here? It's already happened, so we've ought it, but. Yeah, that's how we work, right,
Yeah,
Rich?
we have the quick line for it,
Yeah.
so.
Any other comments or questions? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Coffey, Manager's Report.
And two housekeeping measures. I'd like to apologize to the audience for the awkwardness at the start of the meeting. We have a standard agenda every meeting but this meeting of the year, and my lengthy vacation messed with me, and I apologize for that. And if you wondered why we purchased something before the DOT authorized it, the NRP program was established several years ago to help us buy things with one trustee's authorization privately to keep the price down. So if we were to start figuring out what our maximum price here is, the person who we're looking to buy property from all of a sudden is in a very strong negotiating position, and our costs go up. So that's why we buy it and then authorize it with the board. Manager's report, finance. Approximately 80% or 3.3 million of this year's assessment has been collected through January 11th. Our meeting, the December 7th meeting, there were 18 items. They were all approved. The December 21st meeting, 17 consent items approved, 9 others, 1 was tabled, all others were approved. The meeting on the 4th, there were 28 items, they were all approved. The next ARC meeting is January 18th, 9 a.m. in the Administration Conference Room. There was 28 cases to be presented at the VC meeting today, and in the hecticness of the day, I did not get an update. Mr. Trustee Brinkler probably could help me on that. Were they all found in violation at the VC? They were all the cases presented were found in violation. Next VC meeting is January 28th at 10 a.m. in Building B&E. Interesting facts for December: 35 home sales, 19 orientations with 29 residents in attendance, and we had 32 applicants show up for our first ever job fair on Wednesday. Everyone received an initial interview, and several follow-up interviews are being scheduled. Food and beverage is in the swing of their busiest time of the year with the planning for the 4th inning of Barefoot by the Lake Festival on February 11th and 12th. Great food and music is lined up for those 2 days. Greggy and the Jets tickets are still on sale. March 25th is the show day. Tickets are $25. Theater seating, maximum 4 tickets per purchaser. Tickets go on sale next month for the 50s and 60s rock and roll doo-wop dance show. Say that 5 times fast tonight. Tickets will be $20 with round table seating. And as with all the Winter Beat series, doors and bar open at 5 o'clock with food menu available. Property services has been very busy, putting up Christmas decorations, taking down Christmas decorations, trimming trees, facilitating the replacement of HVAC units, putting more bollards and rope along Hawthorne, just staying real busy and sometimes with not the full staffing as folks can expect with what's going on in the world. Golf and Pro Shop, Cart Barn Repair Project, waiting permitting. The picnic area is in permitting. We got their initial feedback. Big day tomorrow is our Sandy LaBella Memorial Veterans Tournament. Ladies 18 hole on the 25th, and the 29th is the Carl Anderson Memorial. For folks' information, next board meeting on the 25th, we'll have the release of 2 RFPs, one for the Pool 3 parking lot project and one for 3 food and beverage projects. The 19th hole kitchen, new stove and hood, the 19th hole walk-in cooler, and the lounge walk-in cooler. Those will be on the agenda on the 25th. Building A renovation project. As I can tell, unless something's happened in the last hour, which is not impossible around here, all the work is done and we're waiting on the final 3 county inspections and then the final food and beverage related inspections. We will be having a formal ribbon cutting grand opening ceremony where folks can be amazed at the size of HVAC units and how much you can pack into a small room with the mechanical stuff. And Chairman Mino will be dropping the first official basket of French fries. So I'm still trying to talk Kathy into selling the ketchup, but she insists the ketchup and salt and pepper will be free also. So that will be publicized.
I had to interview for this as one of those 32 people that were interviewed. No.
The beach restroom project, we finally had some good news due to a changing in land use regulations that the county wasn't aware of last spring. Pilings are no longer required as long as we move the building about 20 feet towards A1A. The engineers are working on redesigning that site plan. There's a couple different permitting processes that have to happen after that, and then we can solicit bids for the work, get the building delivered, connect the utilities, and put that one into the district books. For folks who days blend together, Monday is Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. The administration and Falcon Drive complexes will be closed. And next Tuesday night, Chairman Mino and the trustees will host a budget kickoff town hall meeting where you can talk to them from the comforts of your seat in the audience. I will reprise my role of Monty Hall, walk around with a cordless microphone, and everyone is invited to come and give their opinion early in the budget process. And that concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir.
I have a question.
Some good news there, believe me, with the beach and with Building A. Okay. Next on the agenda is the attorney's report. Mr. Carey, do you want to go? Or
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
Do you want to do you that first, or?
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry.
I have a question.
Sure.
For Mr. Coffey. You know how it is setting speed is and stuff around town, you know, driving. We had something set up with the county, did we not? It's been several months ago, it said that we had a list, we are on a list for a survey.
We'll check in with them to see where we are on that list, but I believe a few months ago when we checked, we were still about 4 months out, so we're getting close.
We're getting close. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Carey, would you rather go, or Mr. Repinger do his, or?
I've got something real quick and then I'll.
Sure, go ahead, all right. Our attorney's report. Go ahead, sir.
As the manager mentioned, with the contracts, you know, most of the things that we do here, I've talked to the manager and I want to work within the system that you have. I'm not gonna come in and immediately start demanding changes. The way you guys do things, you know, we wanna make sure that we work with you in the way that you're used to doing things. The one small exception to that is the contracts. You know, we have a really good system for our contracts that I think works, and I think it'll work well for the district, and so you'll start seeing a lot of them that are either our own contracts or our addendum, and that includes all the legal provisions that we would need to protect the district while leaving in place their substantive and their aspects of the contract or the scope of work, so you'll start seeing those. If you have any questions about any of the differences, you can feel free to ask as you're reviewing them. But I think it is a good system that'll work well for you. And with that, I will cede the rest of my time to Mr. Reppinger, who will be giving his final attorney report.
So, okay, and before you do that, so transition is going well, you're getting the knowledge of everything we do and back and forth?
Yeah, I've met multiple times with both Mr. Reppinger and the manager, and we'll continue doing so to make sure that we don't skip a beat as we move through this transition.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Reppinger, welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good to be back and good to be back and see everyone. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, just to kind of dovetail onto that, the contract discussion. Great idea from Mr. Carey to have a addendum to the form contracts that you'll get from vendors. That includes standard language that benefits the district. So excellent suggestion. Already moving in a positive direction with your new council, and so that's great. What you have before you, what I've given you is this is a list of all matters that were either open or closed during my time at Whitebird. So it is a comprehensive total list of everything that we had over the last basically 2+ years or so. It's pretty much everything that's relevant to us at this point in time. And I don't want to bore everyone and go through every single bit of it, but I do want to kind of highlight a couple of items that I think you'll be concerned about or just want to be aware of moving forward as we handle the transition. As Mr. Carey said, we've met a couple of times. We've had some conversations about the transition, and we're gonna work together to make sure that everything gets passed off and handed off just in the right way. So just hitting on some of the highlights of the list so you can see. And one of the reasons why I gave you everything that was closed as well is so that you have the knowledge of things that maybe if we didn't discuss or maybe they didn't, maybe you weren't aware of, or just for reference points to go back and say, okay, what did we do with that, or did we have something on that, so that we kind of know, like at least over the last 2 years. And I know, John and I have worked together long enough, Coffee worked long enough that he knows that anything that's not on this list that I might have knowledge of, we'll certainly be able to pull those kind of files, anything that's historical, anything from Gray Robinson or Rossway Swan that we would need to pull, we could. I don't think that anything from those data banks that is not on this list is all that pressing. So it's just kind of stuff that if it's needed, if somebody has a suspicion that I might have something on a topic, or if there's a document that gets pulled that addressed an issue that I was handling previously, you can always ask me about it and I'll pull it. But the need to go back and pull every single file out of GR or Rossway would be, I think, cumbersome and probably not very beneficial or productive for everybody. So this list is just a comprehensive list of where we're at or what we've done over the last couple of years. The first item on the list is just the general matter. We had, what you'll see, you'll have 50 matters on this list. So there were 50 open matters that were specifically different issues that were open matters for. And they're all by number. It's in numerical order. So it's 1 through 50 are the matters that were actually open. The very first matter on the list was the general matter. So under the general matter, those were just the kind of routine, day-to-day items that would come up, things that we would address at the staff level, questions and items that were small enough that they were kind of like one-off items or things that we didn't open another matter on. We just handled them under the general matter. Those items that I had a subfolder on are all bullet pointed off to the side under status. And so you'll see, those are just all the topics of things that I had files on. A lot of documents from those files I'm putting on thumb drives for Mr. Carey to have. So a lot of the district's governing documents and things he'll have access to. A lot of those are already on the website, but there are some things that he'll be getting as far as on the thumb drives of just some of the older resolutions and the enforcement resolutions that you have for DUR, or it's an example, just various complaints and Word documents and things that I think might be beneficial for him to have in transition to him out of these sub matters. So the rules of trustees, the drafts of the rules of trustees and things, we'll be making sure that all of that is handed off. Just some items to hit on there that are kind of a couple of administrative things. Mr. Coffey talked about the beach restrooms. That's great. County confirmed that the siting law had changed, and obviously in accordance with what Mr. Coffey said, the site engineer has acknowledged that they're moving forward with that plan adjustment, and looks like you'll be in great shape to move that project forward. There are two outstanding administrative issues under general that I need to resolve and just finalize out. One is the lease swap between Shaw and the CBO. I just addressed that with Mr. Nugent before the meeting. I literally have like just a small tweak to it, and then I'm going to send that out to staff, and that will be done. And then the Stewart Medical Group lease, the ground lease, that's kind of a problematic issue. After the board approved the lease agreement, I sent a copy of the final approved lease agreement that the board approved to the Deputy General Counsel for Stewart. Leading up to that meeting, I think I had given you some correspondence leading up to that meeting that they had indicated that they really didn't have any changes, or that their changes to that agreement would be minor. Since that meeting, I've reached out to Deputy General Counsel a few times via correspondence. I've not received a response. And so I do not know what that means. I can't tell you that that deal is not going to move forward, but I can tell you that it's concerning to me that their lack of communication, and that they've not responded. I did just last week advise the Deputy General Counsel via email that I was transitioning out as General Counsel and that Mr. Carey would be taking over. And I did not receive a response to that email. I also told him that this meeting would be today, and that I would appreciate it if they could give me an update by today, so that I could tell you where that lease agreement's at, and they have not responded. So
We signed and they did not sign, correct?
that's correct. So there was a letter of intent that was signed.
Letter of intent, yeah.
And then we drafted out the terms, and then we approved the version that we were comfortable with, and then they have not executed it. So is it a deal that they're not going to move forward with? Well, I can't tell you at this point in time, but I would tell you that I'm not entirely optimistic given where we're at in the process. I don't want to speculate too much, but I mean, I can't tell you. All I can tell you is I've reached out. I can do another reach out and just kind of tell them that we had the meeting today and that you all were interested in another feedback from them, and see if that is a catalyst for any response. But without that, I guess I'll transition that over to Mr. Carey. He's got the emails now and the information, and so he can have follow up with that. But hopefully that will materialize positively as we move forward. But those are the only kind of outstanding administrative issues that are left under the general. 2 is just the general DOR. 3 is matters that are related to like social membership fee assessments and title estoppels. Basically the financial side of things as far as any kind of lien and assessment collection and those kind of things. There are 3 active litigation cases, 2 foreclosures that the district has been named in, and 1 a statement of a claim on a probate estate case that we have filed notices of appearances on, the district has. We can do substitution of counsel on those cases with Mr. Carey's office. They're really insignificant to the district, other than just kind of watching what happens in those cases. Other than that, there's just a bunch of general things related to assessment collection that I'll be providing to Mr. Carey as well. 4 is labor and employment issues. There are no active labor and employment issues that our office is handling, so that's a good thing. 5 is liability claims, just so you can kind of have a picture of where you're at liability-wise. You've got 5 active liability cases that are being handled by claims counsel right now that have been picked up by insurers to handle, and so those are reflected there. There's not really a lot of involvement from our office as far as like the day-to-day working of those cases, but the claims counsel does keep general counsel advised of those matters and what's going on, and so we'll make sure that they have been properly advised that Mr. Carey is now to be kept in the loop as far as anything that's needed on those cases. There's 4 of them that are listed there that are just closed cases in case anyone has any questions about those. 6 is issues generally related to NRP. 7 was the referendum election on the spending authority, which was, that was the referendum that was proposed by Commissioner Tobias, that was resolved by the interlocal agreement, and Mr. Carey and I have discussed at length and detail the elements of that interlocal and my recommendations in terms of proceeding moving forward under that interlocal agreement. The 8 was the blissful things eviction, which is now completed and dismissed. Payment has been made and that case is now resolved. And then starting at 9 till the remainder of the list, the bulk of those cases, there's a couple in between, but the bulk of those are the DOR matters that were assigned to our office. Reading this list and looking at it, you'll see right now there are 18 total cases, and how they're indicated is green on the left side looking at it as either open or closed. So these are all the DOR cases that we ever touched during my entire time at Whitebird. A lot of them are closed, as you'll see. Some of them, there are 18 of them that are designated as open that are green. Of those 18 cases, there are 11 files that are active litigation files. So those are 11 cases. Of those 11 litigation cases, 2 of them that are on the list that are highlighted, it's 829-00018 and 829-0029. One of them is 890 Pecan Circle, that's 29. 18 is 935 Vireo Drive. Those cases have come into compliance, and we are asking the board at this time to authorize the filing of the notice of voluntary dismissal in those cases to bring those cases to a final resolution. So I'd like to ask the board to pass a motion to do that at this time.
Okay, rephrase it for us, Cliff.
If you would make a motion to ratify the filing of voluntary dismissals in those cases.
Everybody understand the motion? Is there a motion to accept his recommendation? Mr. Nugent, is there a second? Mr. Amos, any comments, questions for Cliff about this? All those in favor of the motion for the dismissal claim, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
That now brings you down to 9 litigation cases that are active. Those cases are now closed. And so out of those 9 cases, if you look on the left-hand side, and I try to be I'm sorry, on the right-hand side, looking at the document, I try to be as user-friendly as I possibly could be. There are, the ones that are closed have a red dot just for reference. The ones that are in purple with a purple dot are things that I just have something like some matter of cleanup to do to then hand them off. A lot of them, there are multiple ones there that you'll see that are eligible for a default judgment in suit. So we basically just have to file the default judgment and then we can hand it over to Mr. Carey for enforcement purposes. I don't think that there's anything in any one of those cases that I've marked as purple that would exceed 5 hours of time, I don't think, on any case, one individually. So I don't think it's an exorbitant amount of cost for me to just finish those out If I talk to Mr. Carey and he says, hey, I'd rather you just give those to me now rather than you finishing it out, then we can do that. But I think it makes sense for our office to at least kind of finish out those purple indicated items to the extent that we can. There's some of them where we're just going to serve a demand letter and literally that's it, and then we're going to turn it over to Mr. Carey. So, and then anything that's green, marked with a green dot, is just something that right now is in a posture where it can just go over to Mr. Carey without any work or any additional efforts on our part. So those things will just be moved right over to Mr. Carey. And there's one additional update on this list from what you will see, which is, and I know this is one that everybody was kind of concerned about, it was that 750 Lark one with a trailer that had the gentleman who apparently was causing a lot of chaos around him. That case is reflected as open, it's matter 50. I was advised this morning from Mary Berry, as we expected, that that case has totally come into compliance. So that case is now completely closed and in compliance, so it's reflected on your list as open, but it's now closed. There is one additional matter, which was 820 Lynn Circle. It was a violation for a no arc permit and unapproved fence. For some reason, when we went through with staff this list to make sure that our status matched what staff's status thought it was, this case, for some reason, our office had thought that was in compliance, and I think it got mixed in with another email of a case that was in compliance. There were like 2 enforcement cases that were referenced, and so our office, for whatever reason, thought it was in compliance. When it went through the list with staff, they said, no, it's not in compliance. And so that one, I'll probably be sending over. We did not have an open case number on it. We never opened a file on it, but I will just take that and I will give that information to Mr. Carey and then let him move forward with that one accordingly. So that's the only one that staff and I had a discrepancy with. Other than that, we were completely in sync with what was on the list. So, and I've copied them, and so if they have any other questions, they can get with me. But that's it. So unless you have any questions.
Excellent report, Cliff. Geez, a lot of information here, and we really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem. And Mr. Carey will keep you advised moving forward. And then as we move these cases, the ones particularly the ones that are coded purple, I'll send you an email or an update and just say, hey, we've moved this over to Mr. Carey, and so we're done with what we needed to do, and let you know that that's been taken care of.
And that would be good, because really and truly, this is the first time I've really had this perspective of what was out there, what's still open, what we're doing. A really good list, so I do appreciate it.
Right, and that's why I included the close, because I wanted you to see, like, there was a lot of matters that, that have come and gone, and so, yeah, so I just want to make sure that everybody knew where we're at on this.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Incidental trustee remarks. Mr. Nugent. Mr. Brinker. Mr. Morrissey.
Just a reminder for cooperation here for the safety of our residents, please. Thank you.
Mr. Amos.
I'd like to welcome Mr. Brinker to the board. Pleasure to work with you.
Thank you, sir. I have none. Hearing none, I would ask for a motion to, any other business? Motion to adjourn the meeting? Mr. Morrissey made a motion, seconded by Mr. Brinker. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. The meeting is adjourned.